Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're cutting right through all the noise surrounding enterprise network security. Now, go ahead and completely forget those outdated analogies of castles and moats. Today's modern networks, they require intelligent, heavily layered, and incredibly dynamic defense systems.
So let's just shatter a massive misconception right off the bat. You literally cannot buy network security. I mean, sure, you can purchase a state-of-the-art, top-of-the-line firewall, but at the end of the day, that's just technology. Real, actual security requires strict policies, relentless organizational discipline, and continuous operation. There is absolutely no piece of hardware on the market that can magically replace a well-trained team and a rock-solid security policy.
All right, here's our roadmap for today. We're breaking this down into 6 areas. First, foundations of network security. Then, the modern threat landscape. Hardening and core defenses. Identity, the new perimeter. Designing secure architectures. And finally, we'll wrap up with real-world security scenarios. Okay, let's dive into Section 1, Foundations of Network Security. First things first, you have to realize that security is a strictly integrated system. A single weak link can and will compromise the entire architecture. For instance, think about that dusty, unpatched printer down the hall. Well, it's not just a target. Attackers can actually weaponize it into a botnet to launch attacks against your other internal systems. And remember, fundamentally, security exists to enable your business, not block it. If your security controls are so tight that they stop your employees from doing their jobs, well, then your security has failed. Moving right along to Section 2, the modern threat landscape. Cyber attacks aren't just random acts of chaos. They are highly methodical. It always starts with reconnaissance, basically gathering public intel on your systems. Next comes scanning and enumeration. This is where they're actively probing your network for an open window, like an unpatched server. And once they find it, that leads straight to exploitation, so they can get inside. Finally, there's privilege escalation. See, they might sneak in as a low-level guest user, but they're going to exploit internal weaknesses to elevate themselves up to full administrative control. Knowing your enemy entirely dictates how you build your defenses. You've got hacktivists, who are usually driven by ideological motives. Then you have organized cybercriminals. These guys are a very high threat, looking strictly for financial gain through things like ransomware or extortion. And at the absolute extreme end, you have nation-state actors. These are government-sponsored groups with virtually unlimited resources, and they're motivated by deep-level espionage and sabotage.
All right, Section 3, hardening and core defenses.
This brings us to a massive, crucial paradigm shift in modern networking, which is zero trust security. The mantra here is incredibly simple. Never trust, always verify. Your physical location? It literally means nothing anymore. Every single request coming from every single device and every single user must be continuously verified. This is the absolute anchor for any modern network defense strategy. So building directly on that zero trust idea, we have device hardening, which is all about systematically reducing your attack surface. Now, this takes a lot of work. It requires meticulous inventory. You have to know exactly what's actually sitting on your network. It means standardizing your configurations, aggressively deploying timely patches, strictly limiting who gets administrative access, and centralizing your logs so you can actually spot an intrusion when it happens. You are essentially stripping away every single unnecessary service that an attacker could possibly exploit. Section 4. Identity, the new perimeter. Identity and access management really relies on this golden rule of 3 for authentication. Number 1, something you know, like a password or a PIN. Number 2, something you have, like a physical security key or a token app on your phone. And number 3, something you are, like a fingerprint or a facial biometric. When you stack these factors together, you create multi-factor authentication. Look, an attacker might guess your password, sure, but do they have your physical phone and your actual fingerprint? Unlikely. Stacking these creates an incredibly robust, almost impenetrable shield. On to Section 5, designing secure architectures. Applying zero trust completely changes how we approach physical network design. The legacy trust model assumed this flat network idea. Basically, if you made it past the outer firewall, you were trusted to roam freely. And honestly, that is completely disastrous today because it allows threats to move laterally across your systems. The modern trust model, however, relies on strict network segmentation. We're talking about carving the network into heavily isolated zones. That way, if an attacker breaches the guest Wi-Fi, they immediately hit an internal firewall before they ever get a glimpse of your core servers. Now, these distinct zones function together as one cohesive system. You've got your edge security, that's your firewalls, your demilitarized zones for web servers, and DDoS mitigation soaking up attacks from the open internet. Then you have your campus security, which uses VLAN segmentation to keep different departments safely separated. And finally, teleworker security. Because the perimeter is literally everywhere now, remote laptops desperately need encrypted VPN tunnels and mobile device management to keep data secure, whether that data is sitting in a corporate data center or on an employee's kitchen table.
And finally, Section 6, Real-World Security Scenarios.
So let's look at how all this scales dynamically based on actual risk. Take a small e-commerce retailer, let's call them NetGames R Us. With maybe a $200,000 budget, their focus is purely on protecting credit card data to meet PCI DSS compliance, using a next-generation firewall and a segmented payment network. Now contrast that with a huge university. They have to constantly balance open research access with really strict HIPAA data privacy, which requires heavy segmentation and centralized identity controls. And then look at Black Helicopter, a classified government contractor. We're talking a multi-million-dollar budget utilizing air-gapped networks that are completely physically isolated from the internet, biometric access, and continuous advanced threat hunting. As you can see, security is absolutely never a one-size-fits-all deal.
Well, that brings us to the end of our explainer. But before we go, I really want you to stop and think about your own organization for a second. Is your network a true, tightly integrated security system? Or is it just a disconnected, messy collection of expensive products you bought, kind of just hoping they would keep you safe? Remember what we talked about. You cannot just buy network security. You have to meticulously design it, continuously verify it, and operate it diligently every single day. Thanks so much for joining me on The Explainer. And hey, keep building those defenses.